So, starting with the vein, you guys ready? Starting with the vein. Wow, I'm just totally blanking. So, the vena cava, superior. I'm like, not anterior. Thank you. Superior vena cava. You sure you guys want me to do this?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
I'm a little scared right now.
What?
It could be anterior.
Yeah, that's called the superior portion. I mean, compared to the posterior.
Let's not make this complicating.
Sternal vein is immediately off of that, which turns into internal mammary. The brachiocephalic is the first branch off of vena cava. I have external jugular that goes up, internal jugular along the side of it. Between the brachiocephalic and the subscapular that comes off here, this teeny tiny little portion right here is the right subclavian. And then once that branch happens, now you're axillary. The axillary has coming off of it 3 nubs. The first one is the V, ventral thoracic. The L, which is the long thoracic, which is probably this guy, potentially. It's kind of hard to tell. And the last one would be thoracodorsal, coming back towards the latissimus dorsi. Once you have your last branch, the VLT, then you have brachial for your vein. Axillary, then brachial. Then the little guy back up here that went into the body cavity that I skipped over, that's their costovertebral. External jugular, coming off the external jugular, which isn't injected very well on that, is the transverse scapula over here. Then you have the transverse jugular, anterior facial, posterior facial. So for the arteries, we have brachiocephalic trunk. You have a different branching from that versus this guy over here. So your right subclavian comes off immediately from the heart, or from the base of the arch of the aorta. So that's, left subclavian. Versus the brachiocephalic's way down here, which branches 3 times. The first one is going to the left external common carotid. Not external, just common carotid. The second branch here is your right common carotid, and then you have your right subclavian over here, which looks different from your left subclavian over here. So right subclavian, you're looking for your first branch off of that going forward, and once you've found that, that stops being subclavian and becomes axillary down the length of the artery. So this one is thyrocervical, which then branches down here after thyrocervical, then transverse scapular. Back up to this area. The 2 that go into the body, unlike the vein, which is a costovertebral, you have 2. One of them is the vertebral, which goes into the body towards the vertebra, which is straight down, so it's this guy actually here. And this one you can see is kind of running forward towards the head, so that's the costocervical. Then the one in my hand here that I'm pulling on is the internal mammary, which is different. You have 2 of those, one on either side for the arteries. You only have a single one coming off the sternal and the vein. Alright, so back to the subclavian, you see your first branch, now it's axillary. Now, unlike the vein, the artery doesn't have the subscapular coming off right away. The subscapular happens later. So you have your VLTs first. So in this case, it looks like this is your ventral thoracic, long thoracic next to it, and then thoracodorsal, which goes back towards the lat. And then you have your subscapular here. Once that subscapular branches, then your main line becomes the brachial. So slightly different. Don't forget about your vagus nerves running up and down your common carotids. And then your phrenic is going to come out and turn right or left, depending which side it's on. This side's broken. No, this side. Yeah, that's your phrenic on that side. Your phrenic on this side. You have your azygos, vein coming off the heart down here, this big guy, and your pulmonary arteries and veins between your heart and your lungs. Don't forget the colors are flip-flopped in the pulmonary system. Alright, so that's most of the upper body for arteries and veins. So lower body, this is going to be hard to see from over there potentially. I don't know, can you guys see it from there? Okay, so you've got your abdominal aorta. Your thoracic aorta isn't something you're going to be able to see with this dissection because it's in the middle under where your diaphragm is. So the portion that you're going to see down here is your abdominal aorta. And the whole thing is descending, starting with the arch of the aorta. It's just there's different pieces of it. So this is the abdominal portion of your descending aorta. The first branch here is the celiac trunk. And then it splits into three branches. So the first branch goes towards the liver. This little guy is your hepatic. The second one is your gastric going to your stomach. And then your splenic going straight up. It's going to your spleen. So those are your hugs, HGS. The next branch off of that is going to be your superior mesenteric. And that goes to this whole intestinal system, which we'll come back to in a minute. Then you've got, going through the adrenal gland here, we've got adrenal lumbar artery and vein going through the adrenal gland. Then renal artery and vein coming towards the kidney. And you get your posterior vena cava, and then
Hold that.
your vessels that are coming to you, or in the case of the female, which are broken here. So that's your genital vein or ovarian vein in a female. And then the artery would have been this guy, which there was a blowout, so it's not attached. So the uterus, these are the uterine horns, and then the body is down at the base of the Y. That's the body. The whole thing is the uterus. The uterine horns are cornu. Alright, down here at the bottom, your dorsal branch here. Once you get down towards the pelvis, we've got the iliolumbar, left and right, and artery and vein. And then there's slightly different branching between artery and vein down here. So with the artery, you have external iliac running along here. So this is the external iliac. And the internal iliac is running parallel to it on the inside. Branches separate. That becomes femoral, this external iliac becomes femoral once it's past sort of this pelvic ridge here, and it's onto the leg. That's different from the vein. The vein starts as common iliac, not as external iliac. And the switch from common iliac to external, you have to find the internal iliac first. So this branch down into here, that's the internal iliac for the vein. So it's not parallel the way the artery is. It's a branch. So that's internal iliac. Once you found internal iliac, then you've got external iliac. Both of them come onto the leg, and that's the femoral artery and vein. Once they branch again, you now have greater saphenous running down the leg, and popliteal running to the knee, artery and vein. You also have one more back here, going straight down the middle in the back. That's the caudal artery and vein, going straight down the back. Okay, so back to the intestinal system. So we talked about the superior mesenteric artery here. You have a superior mesenteric vein as well. They come together. However, the superior mesenteric vein, if we tag it way up at the top here, this is going to be hepatic portal. It's pretty short, but we would delineate, way up here versus way down here for the superior mesenteric vein. So together, that's superior mesenteric. Now for the artery. And these differ slightly between arteries and veins. Superior mesenteric makes a couple branches. The first one goes straight and onto the cecum portion of the large intestine. So this here is the ileocolic. Now that splits, and on the back side goes to the back part of the cecum, and that's the right colic, artery and vein. Now, the one that makes a left turn here and then goes up towards the the large intestine here. That's the middle colic. Left colic runs all the way along the large intestine until it becomes inferior mesenteric at the bottom. We don't have a middle colic for the veins. The veins go superior mesenteric as soon as it branches here. This is now inferior mesenteric. Doesn't have an inferior portion down here like the arteries does. It's first. So inferior here, then it becomes left, and left continues all the way along. You have ileocolic up the front and right colic up the back. Then the other portions of these vessels that don't go on to the intestines, or to the large intestine, go to the small intestine. And all of these numerous initial branches are the mesenterics, so all these main lines. And they don't become intestinals until right at the edge. So this Y right close to the intestine, those are the intestinals. The last thing to be aware of is the pancreaticoduodenal, which you need to find the duodenum portion of the small intestine first. And running alongside of it is a portion of the pancreas. So you have one part of the pancreas coming up this direction here. That's the main portion, and this small portion that comes down the duodenum. So pancreaticoduodenal, shockingly, runs between the duodenum and the pancreas. And where you're going to see it is the posterior or inferior, interchangeable, portion of it. There's a superior pancreaticoduodenal, but it's way up here, lost, and you're not going to see it.
Do we have to say inferior pancreaticoduodenal?
Yes, this is the inferior or posterior portion of the pancreaticoduodenal. And I believe that's it for arteries, veins. This is a better intact ovarian artery and vein on this side, which was genitals, generally, or testicular in a male. And
do we have to specify? Not just gonadal?
If I say, what is this, genital or gonadal is fine. If I say be specific, I want ovarian or testicular.
Can you distinguish the sections of the digestive really quick? Like,
There's a video on that.
Oh, there is?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, we can still go over it.
Yeah.
This is, so what is this? The big, just generally. Thank you. So the small curve, lesser curvature. What's the big one?
Greater curvature.
All right, so where they come together is this junction right here. So that's the pylorus, which means this is the body. The cardia is up at the top. Fundus. Yeah, so that's kind of hard to delineate. Pylorus, body, fundus, cardia. I wouldn't really ask fundus. Junction is here, so what's the junction called? Pyloric junction. What's the sphincter called? Yep. What's the first part of the small intestine? Duodenum. And then really the only way we can distinguish between how many parts of the intestine? Three of the small intestine, is to find the junction between the small intestine and the large intestine, and that is definitely the last part, which is called ileum, or ileocecal juncle, or ileocolic junction, ileocecal or ileocolic junction. And this is the ileum portion of the small intestine, duodenal portion of the small intestine. That's how we delineate those. So anything that we tag in the middle is pretty much going to be called jejunum. So what's the point of the large intestine called? Cecum. And if this were in here the way it should be, then this would be the ascending, transverse, and descending portions of the large intestine. And then your rectum would be down past the sort of pelvic rim here. Lobes of the liver, how many are there? 5. So you kind of have to look at the top of the liver to know where the lobes separate. So starting on the left side, you have a left lateral over here. You have a left medial right here, so that's left medial. That split there splits left medial and right medial. So even though this looks like a split, it's not. You can tell because it's still together at the back. So all of that is right medial. And then right lateral is way over here. And then right next to it, actually, in your animal, it's kind of hidden behind back here. So this poking through now, that's your caudate lobe, that little tiny guy back there. And then what's in between this lobe? Gallbladder. Cool? Any other questions?